Welcome, Sojourners. I'm Jonathan with Sojourners Awake, and this is our production of Sojourner Spotlight, RPG news and interviews. This podcast is designed for discussing all things tabletop and role-playing games. Today, we are discussing Eberron.
Hello.
Hey, Jackson, how are you?
Yeah, there I am. I'm just a big Eberron nerd, so I know a lot of stuff about Eberron. Out of my two favorite settings of D&D, they're the sci-fi ones.
Good. Dare I ask, what is your other favorite setting?
Spelljammer and Planescape, and a few others.
Very cool. Well, today, with the topic of Eberron, I was wondering, what are the three ingredients that make up the perfect dragon-marked house? And, you know, for those of us like myself who don't really know that much about Eberron, maybe you could also explain what a dragon-marked house is.
Let's start with what a dragon mark is. A dragon mark is sort of like a magical birthmark that sort of manifests at 50% chance if one of your parents was dragon marked, that you would be born with a dragon mark. It would manifest typically around 10, 12 years of age. This mark with power over certain, trades, basically, and, concepts. Some examples are Mark of Making, which is all about, invention. There's the Mark of Shadows, which is all about, espionage, but also entertainment. The families that have these dragon marks kind of created guilds, for the most part. And that's what these houses are. They're run by the actual marked family, and they tend to have trade that involves around what their mark allows them to do.
So it sounds like to me the dragon mark is almost like a genetic makeup of a person that may or may not get passed down through lineages.
It's very similar to sorcery in how it's passed down,
yeah,
but very different in every other way. Somewhere down the line, a draconic sorcerer had a dragon mark, or a dragon down their blood. And with dragon marked lineages, somewhere down the line, they had a dragon mark. And from then on, anyone tied to the family had a 50% chance of developing a dragon mark.
Well, another question that comes to mind is, do dragons work the same way in Eberron that they work in other D&D worlds?
This is a question I enjoy a lot. In Eberron, dragons are very different. Typically, in most fantasy D&D worlds, dragons are very powerful. They're very powerful, beasts of primal nature. Whereas in Eberron, dragons are more known for their magical ability, which isn't really as relevant in 5th edition dragons. But in previous editions, dragons actually used to be spellcasters. They live in the secluded continent of Argonason, where basically they have isolated themselves from the world, because they kind of realized, if we meddle in these human affairs, they're going to go too strong, too fast, and they aren't going to be responsible with their power. So they're like the watchers of what goes on in the world, and the protectors.
I mean, dare I say, they almost sound like deities.
In Eberron, there is a being named, there's a faith called the Blood of Vol, who's a leader. I believe it's Isanda Vol, I believe is her name. She is from a lich born from the extinct dragon-marked House of Death, which was formed when an elf with the Mark of Shadow basically had a kid with I think it was a green or a black dragon, I forget which one. But it ended up combining to create the Mark of Shadow. And she is the last remaining. And she is a lich, but she is a powerful lich, enough to where she can grant spells to clerics. So while dragons themselves are more, they aren't gods. They're like the equivalent of a 20th level wizard in most settings.
This dragon mark that shows up in your life, like you said, around like a coming of age, you develop these dragon marks. Are these physical manifestations? Are they like mutant powers?
In lore, there are 5 main types of dragon marks. The first 3 are all tied to each other. The lesser, I believe it's lesser, medium, and greater dragon marks.
Okay.
Lesser dragon marks are the weakest dragon marks, but they're traditionally what like a first level dragon mark character would have. In 5th edition, the lines are very blurred between the differences, but back in I think 3rd edition, there was a lot more different. The idea was lesser at certain level would become medium, then you would gain more powers from your mark. And that would become greater, which would in turn give you more powers from your mark.
So
there's also 2 more types. The Sybaris marks, which are not represented officially in 5th edition, though the settings creator Keith Baker did create mechanics for them in his book Exploring Eberron and the DM's Guild. Check it out, it's really good. But yeah. Sybaris marks are when a dragon mark of a specific type, like the mark of making or passage, something like that, shows up on someone of the correct race who's not part of the lineage. And when that happens, Sybaris marks are the most powerful mark. They are like, no one really knows why they happen, but when it happens, it's a big thing.
So that would be the trial the person goes through called the Test of Sybaris.
Then there is aberrant marks, which are, no one really knows how those happen either, but they are completely random marks that no one really knows how they work, but everyone kind of knows, oh, people who have them are dangerous, which actually leftover propaganda was called the War of the Mark. When a handful of powerful aberrant marked individuals tried to overthrow the dragon marked houses. So people with just basic aberrant marks got caught in a crossfire. And now aberrant marks overall are basically, if you have one, it's like you have to hide it because you can be killed for it.
Okay. So there's a theory on here, since the morning, aberrant marks have been appearing in greater numbers. Why do you think that is?
While that's not a canon, like in-canon thing, and that is considered a suggestion, I do like that, because it implies that whatever caused the morning was tied to someone with an aberrant mark, which I think is fun.
Might be something worth exploring. We talked about how dragons fit in Eberron, how they're a little bit different, with more magical abilities, incredibly powerful beings, not just beasts that hoard treasure. Okay, so I mean, I'm thinking up ways to craft an adventure using the dragon marked houses and patrons, and right from the beginning, I'm seeing that there's a lot of social dynamics in play. There's a lot of room for crime and espionage and assassinations and political power.
And if you want to have another option, which I find interesting, if you want to delve into aberrant marks a bit more, there is it's not technically a dragon mark house, but it is like a sort of like a mafia comprised of aberrant mark people called House Tarkin, which is kind of like trying to overthrow the rest of the houses, or show them that they can be a house.
Very cool. Let's do something fun. Let's come up with an NPC in a dragon marked house. And we're going to use the nice little format I have here. We're going to come up with a name and their relationship to the player characters. They will have at least 3 features. They can be physical features or some kind of personality feature. Of course, they'll have a flaw, they'll have a desire, some kind of need, and of course, a rival that can be exploited or explored. So, I'm going to roll a d8, give you a Dragon Mark quirk, and then from that Dragon Mark quirk, you're going to come up with a name. So, 8. Your Dragon Mark changes size whenever you use it. What is this person's name?
What is this person's name? Let's go with... First of all, what mark does he have? That'll help me pick a name.
Okay, so there's 12 marks. I'm just going to roll a d12 then. I got a 12, so it's going to make the mark of warding.
Alright. Gavin's Stone.
Gavin's Stonepick. Nice. Is he a gnome?
The mark of warding is dwarves.
Dwarf.
Who run... They run vaults, and they're also master locksmiths.
Locksmith. Okay, how is this locksmith dwarf related to the player character?
I like to imagine... this is... And I like to do this with NPCs, where sometimes I'll tie them to a character. Like, Gavin's, one day, he has the mark, but he's been, just owned by the house. Or so he's just this lockpicking to basically, steal and thieve things. Maybe one of the players with a criminal background was his partner back in the day.
Nice. Criminal partner. We already decided his Dragon Mark changes in size. What's 2 other features about this character that are memorable?
He has no eyebrows. He uses an unusual weapon. He uses a hooked short spear. What book is that from? Out of the Abyss? Instead of doing damage, you can choose to have him make a strength save or be knocked prone.
What would be his personality flaw?
He's greedy.
Greedy. What does he want? What does he want out of life? What's he want? Immediate wants, He
wants to get rich to pay off a debt.
There you go. Okay, I just want to stop there and congratulate you because you just identified a great NPC feature. Nobody ever wants money. They always want money is a means to an end, and you clearly identified the end to pay off a debt. Congratulations. He has a need. This is more of an existential need, long-term goal need. Maybe something that redeems his qualities a little bit.
He wants to get out of his criminal ways. Because of his debt, he has to keep doing it to get paid. But his need is to get out of is to reform himself.
Who is his rival?
I got it. His rival was the player, who was his criminal accomplice. Him and one of the players might have an ongoing rivalry to see who can steal the most in a month.
Nice. Well, very cool. That's a great way to establish a Dragon Marked NPC in your games. What kind of plot hook for an adventure could take place with a Dragon Marked house?
Your players could be members of the Mark of Passage, and they could be working on one of their lightning rails, which are basically, they're kind of like monorails that are powered by elemental air that travel across the continent of Corvair. Maybe they met on one of House Lyrander's airships. Perhaps one of them is a Dragon Mark, or has a Dragon Mark. Or maybe they're on the run from one of the Eberron Mark.
Maybe that's where the adventure begins. They are commissioned for whatever reason to, make some money, to make ends meet, to do a simple repair job on this lightning rail. And of course, you want to implement an airship. That sounds like a great one-shot adventure to kick off a campaign. And somehow incorporate Gavin's Stonepick. Now is the part where we have our rules lawyer discussion. So, right from your mind, I would like you to give me an argument, pro and con, on the use of healing potions in the game. And I know most people probably use healing potions in the game, but I would like you to also argue why you shouldn't have healing potions. So what do you got?
Okay. Well, first of all, con healing potions. This isn't necessarily a con about healing potions themselves, but most people don't know that that base healing potions, like the simple like 1d4 plus 4 healing potion, actually has a gold cost like under Player's Handbook equipment. Most people don't realize that. It's like you go to any store, like listed in an adventure, and most likely they'll have like a basic healing potion.
How much does it cost?
It's 50 gold. So
That's
most big stores mentioned in adventures say you can buy stuff from the equipment section of Player's Handbook under so and so gold cost. Typically 50.
Now, it's very unlikely that you'd find a healing potion out in the wild, correct?
No, not in the wild. The one con that I have, that's a pro, and it's easier to find than people realize. But the big con that I have is it says the books say you can make it with an herbalism kit, but they don't say how you make it with an herbalism kit. Adventurers League had to make up their own rules because it wasn't written anywhere.
Okay.
It was just said in the books. Yeah, someone with an herbalism kit can do this.
Yeah, healing potions are a little ambiguous.
Yes, too ambiguous on how to make it yourself.
While there are many ways to get healing or add to your hit points, whether it be the fighter's second wind, or cure wounds, or song of rest, short rest, there's all kinds of ways to get magical hit points added back to you. You could even add to your hit points by increasing your constitution modifier. So here's a question for you. Do healing potions have an expiration date?
Absolutely.
Can healing potions be diluted and sold for a higher cost?
Absolutely.
Can healing potions break when you take falling damage?
Absolutely.
Yikes.
The one interesting thing with that is if it's breaking when you take fall damage, technically it would splash all over you. You would heal.
Okay.
From the shattering.
You could lick it up off the ground.
Look, because healing potions don't have to be applied by mouth. It can be applied like directly to the wound as well. So technically, if a healing potion breaks in your pocket and it seeps into your skin, you would still gain the effects.
That is a very good ruling. I appreciate that.
So even if, like, hey, you lose a healing potion, you still gain a benefit from it.
Well, now it's the time for beginner's advice. To the Dreamer Dungeon Master, here is our message to you. Take it away, Jackson. What is your message to Dreamer Dungeon Masters?
When a player asks, hey, can I roll blank? Tell them to describe what their character does, and then tell them what to roll. A lot of times, players will say, hey, can I roll survival or perception? And that's a little, that's a little cheesy. So it's also not what you're supposed to do according to the rules. But the better idea is if a player tells you that, tell them, what are you trying to do? And instead of can I roll perception? You might say, can I try to look for the bandit who ran away? And I can tell you, sure, make a perception check. Or, in some situations, that might be survival or investigation. So,
Exactly. I love that. Ask the players to describe what their character does. And then, if you as the dungeon master think it's worth a roll, go ahead and have them roll and tell them which check you're trying to go for. A lot of times as a dungeon master, you don't have to have the characters roll every single step of the game. Sometimes you can just simply say it succeeds. Or sometimes you can simply say you push against the door and with your strength you're unable to open it. And that might prompt the players to come up with more clever ideas on how to open the door or how to search for the bandit. All right, Jackson, this is the RPG news segment. So what do you have for us in the world of Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, just this week, I got announced. The next book to be announced, comes out in March. We have announced Critical Role, Call of the Netherdeep. An adventure from 3rd to, I believe, 17th level. From what we know so far, it starts out in the lands of Jorhas. Lands scarred by an ancient war of the gods. And then leads to the glittering port oasis of Ankarel, before leading to the land of the Netherdeep, which is described as a mix of the far realms and the deep ocean. Hi, Cthulhu.
That's wonderful.
Yes. And I have an item spotlight for the upcoming Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. Multiple people online have gotten early review copies currently of the book. And through watching a couple of their Q&A, whatever, I've come across what is currently my favorite magic item in the game. It is also the first magic firearm to be added to the game. It is, what's it called? The Topaz Annihilator.
Wow.
It is for proficiency, it's considered a firearm. It is a musket. It looks like a musket, but it does not require ammunition. Instead of bullets, it has the scale of a Topaz Dragon, and it's in the chamber, and as it's considered its own unique firearm. And for damage, instead of doing piercing damage like the other firearms in the game, it does necrotic damage, 2d4. And once per day, you can use it to cast the Disintegrate spell. Hooray! Which is in line with Topaz Dragons, which I love. Because Topaz Dragon's breath weapon, at least in past editions, they had like a dehydrating breath weapon that did necrotic damage. Where basically it sucks the water out of the hydration out of your body.
Well, thank you for enjoying the podcast with us. I hope that you learned a lot about the RPG news and learned about how to add this information about Eberron and dragons and Topaz guns into your games. Please share it with your friends. Find us at Facebook and Instagram. And as always, Sojourner,
may your story continue.
Every interview comes to an ending, so for now we must conclude. Thank you for listening, Sojourners. Your attention will not go unrewarded, and we look forward to continuing this conversation at our table. If you enjoyed this background music and ambiance, you should check out Tabletop Audio. You can find them at www.tabletopaudio.com. And take the time to sojourn with us. For articles on playing your very own Dungeons & Dragons games, visit www.sojournersawake.com. You can also find us being inspirational on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, Sojourner, may your story continue.